what's bigger than the sum of the individuals. So I do worry that we're going to potentially miss some of those bigger things in sort of focusing so much on the individual.
Let's focus in for a second on moving a road. What does that entail?
Yeah, and why you might do that,
and
right?
Why you might do that, yeah.
So we talked about sea level rise. So sea levels are rising. They have risen already. Only a little bit of sea level rise means a much bigger impact when we get that confluence of a storm happening at a high tide. Coastal community, we have a lot of outdated infrastructure in our community. San Juan County is not an easy community, right? We're small population-wise. We're diverse geography-wise. And so we've got a lot of infrastructure that is not necessarily up to snuff, right, for public safety, for public access, or for minimizing environmental impact. The flip side of that is that there's a lot of opportunity. There's opportunity in how can we do this better? If we were going to do it today, how might we design those roads? And there's engineering solutions that are good for people and for nature. So even like with state parks, moving a road, so instead of taking up 500 feet of salt marsh, it is, in a more forested upland area, right? So you're making decisions and making trade-offs, but also really thinking about what is the best thing for the entire community. And again, with a consultant-driven planning department that they're getting sent individual permit applications, right? Sort of who's keeping the eye on the big picture, right? Who's looking at the opportunities, who's looking at the threats in the bigger way. And I think we'll have to work that out as a community.
What I've noted, Heather, is that we have been proactive as a county in addressing where do we need to relocate roads. And the problem is, we still have to do more of that, right? Mm-hmm. We're on an island. We have different levels across our islands of how resilient we can be. And we have to actually uphold those plans once we do the 7 years of research and make recommendations based on what the best scenarios are for protecting people, for protecting nature, and we need to not kick the can, right? We have to ensure that our elected leaders, and especially the new elected leadership and the current leadership of San Juan County, recognize all of the work that has gone into many of these proposals and many of the plans, and not start again each time there is some debate or some concern or contention. We really need to show this is where we've come, this is the research we've done, and we need to make decisions in this moment. There isn't time to wait. They still need to be thoughtful. They need to be based on science, based on reality, and also based on great community input and assessment and the best scenario planning over time. But let's not punt. Nobody likes a punter, right? I mean, I don't know why when you become a leader, you think it's okay. It's not. So let's remind ourselves.
Well, when you think of something like moving a road, that is a huge project. And when you're talking about time, you have to have that community buy-in. You have to figure out like the design. I mean, I'm imagining these things, but the design of the road, where it's going to go, all that stuff. And again, you have to have community buy-in for all of that, and that takes time. So if you're punting it, and you're using up that time, then all of a sudden, the roads are eroding.
And guess what? 50 years from now, then you have a community that actually is another island within the island, because we don't have an appropriate road to withstand the elements.
Right, which I'm hearing Lopez is looking at, for example.
And we're there a little bit already, right? We're doing a lot of things as emergencies,
right?
So I've been at Friends for a long time, and we've been talking about county roads for a long time. Some of these are ones we've been talking about for 25 years, right? So it's an emergency now, and that's where, again, kind of circling back, where some of this climate resiliency work, some of the Friends work that we've done on mapping where the opportunities are to improve resiliency by moving some of these structures. It's where, again, science and community engagement, just like at the individual property owner scale, when we work with an individual property owner on a restoration project, there's trade-offs and there's different objectives that we have to meet. We have to learn how to tackle the multi-objective projects, right? They're the harder ones, they're the more complex, where you're thinking about a road and habitat and public safety and, property owner rights and all those things. That's not easy. We're not pretending that those are easy,
Right.
but we do have to make those hard decisions, and we've got to kind of get better at those multi-benefit projects for all of us.
And also, siting matters, right? So part of why we're in this challenge, let's just be honest. It's not easy, but it's because we have built where we shouldn't have, right? So
Right.
yes, it might look like the most beautiful place to build a home or even a neighborhood, but yet then 20 years, 50 years, 75 years later, we're in this place where then we have to throw boulders at a solution. And guess what? If you know water doesn't stop because there's a boulder. That hard armoring doesn't work. So if someone's trying to sell you a bid for hard armoring, saying the water's not going to get to your property and you'll be decreasing erosion, put your money where it is actually going to make a difference. Because we are in a situation right now where we've got to look at how we're planning for the future and citing where we choose to build, where we choose to develop is consequential to all of us.
Right. And with that in mind, we're going to take another break and we will discuss the future more as soon as we get back.
Great.
This is one of the variations from Tchaikovsky's piece Rococo Variations.
And we are back with Eva and Tina for a little bit more about the environment, the future of the San Juan Islands, and where we're going. So let's talk a little bit about vessel traffic, because one of the things that's happening now is increasing tankers coming in from Canada. So what are you guys seeing in the vessel traffic realm?
Yeah, well, siting still matters. Different place, not land but sea, but where projects and where specifically vessel transits are permitted to go really matters. And right now we are in a real catastrophic area of concern because the Trans Mountain Pipeline is bringing 690 some new vessels, so 34 vessels a month approximately, to our Salish Sea waters with no agreement, right? No collective input from San Juan County that they can traverse these waters. Now we know that maritime organizational laws weigh in, and that there's lots of considerations from the Coast Guard and the Department of Ecology, but we also know that any oil spill will be devastating to San Juan County and devastating to jobs, devastating to commerce, devastating to tribal treaty rights, to fishing, to just our way of life. So we're highly concerned. The risk is low, but it's not so low when you have 34 mega vessels traversing additional
Yeah.
a month going
Well,
across
every time you
these
have more
communities.
ships coming through, it's like those odds go up.
And that's not counting Roberts Bank Terminal 2, which is posed to expand and bring another 542 mega vessels, like vessels that we haven't even seen the size of before, 5 times as big as the vessels that we've seen. And when you think about those rocks that they have to turn Point and Harrow Strait, there are just some real risks. So we actually quantified in the Washington State Department of Ecology quantified the impacts of an oil spill, just one oil spill. It could be anywhere from 84 million to 510 million just within our San Juan County community. So we've got to be vigilant. We have to monitor all of these vessels. They are not taking Trans Mountain Pipeline tar sands oil to Asia like they said they would, right? That was the original proposal. And instead, they are coming to the West Coast through our waters, going to refineries that are right across the Salish Sea, going to refineries along the California
So they're not
coastline.
using Canadian refineries.
The Trans Mountain Pipeline tar sands oil is coming from Canada, and then it is coming through our waters and down the western coast. Again, no agreement was made here
Right.
that we're supposed to ship that to Asia, but because of the Russia-Ukraine war, there is no longer a buyer, right? Because I think we are seeing now that Russia's selling cheaper oil to Asia, and they are buying directly from Russia. And so there's no buyer for the Canadian tar sands oil, and that means they are now in our waters. So what is Washington State doing to protect our Salish Sea? We need to be vigilant. We need to monitor these vessels. We have a unique opportunity as residents on the islands to be attentive, to be following how they're anchoring, how they are moving, how many transits are occurring. And that's some of the work that we do at Friends of the San Juans. But
Now, part of the concern too, and correct me if I'm wrong, is this tar oil is different than just your regular oil.
We've got our scientist here, and we also have our policy director back at the office. You can see our office. Let me point the right way. Let's see if I go right over there. That is Lovell Pratt's office. Our policy director, and then our legal director, James McCubbin, with James and Lovell, and then of course our board and our incredible volunteers. We have been working to equip community members to know how to act and when to act. And oftentimes we only have 10 days or 2 weeks to respond to the risk. And tar sands oil, it is connected with diluted bitumen, but it'll last for a little bit of time on top of the water, but eventually will sink and will go to the seafloor. And we don't know the impacts, and nobody knows how to clean it up. And that's our biggest concern, is what will it do to that sea floor and all of the habitat on that sea floor? And we don't know, no one knows how to clean it. And guess what? We do have our Washington vessels paying when they go to port, right? So they pay a port fee that then goes to pay for us having an emergency response towing vessel in Nia Bay, which is great. But you know what? Nia
Too
Bay
far
is-
from here if a ship loses propulsion or something.
I mean, do you want your fire truck to be that far away? We don't want our emergency response towing vessel for this new upsurge in Canadian vessel traffic to be that far. So we know we need an emergency response towing vessel in the San Juan County area. And ideally, based on the studies, it would be in Roche Harbor. And so there's lots of momentum toward that, except we aren't getting that agreement yet from Canada. So that's part of what we need to do, is at minimum have that. And we also want to reduce vessel traffic. It's some of what we've done with, in 2022, we had a Washington State Court of Appeals a vote in our favor at Friends of the San Juans, thanks to the action alert responses that we got from community members. We were able to actually win in a lawsuit protection of no more additional vessel traffic, so we can protect our endangered species of the southern resident killer whales. And then just this last year, we negotiated with an oil refinery across the Salish Sea to say no new vessel traffic in a settlement agreement. And that came because 64 people responded to our urgent action alert and wrote letters. And we had 10 days, and this community responded. And as a result, we're sitting at the negotiation table to hopefully prevent that additional risk from Washington vessel traffic. But you want to talk more from a science-based perspective?
Well, I think the important thing to remember, right, whether it's oil floating on the top or on the bottom, prevention is the key here. Even a successful oil spill cleanup, you clean up just a fraction of the oil,
Great
right?
point,
So what we're really focusing on and sort of where we engage with our community and have our responders is the policy. Where's the prevention policy? Where are the tools like the emergency response towing vessels that can help these ships before they, hit the rocks when they make those tight turns at turn point? And that's where those increases in traffic. And there's also other vessel impacts, right, to our endangered southern resident killer whale. Some of these ships are loud. Some of these ships are larger and faster. There's a few, things that could be done to make ships quieter. Some of the sort of poorly maintained ships make more noise, right? So we're really tracking the science and tracking every opportunity to engage in the policy. So some of those successes, right, are refineries here in Washington State where we have a more direct link with our legal tools and our policy tools to actually affect change and really focus on limiting increases in vessel traffic. So that's really the policy. I would say the science side of it with the oil spill, right, is that it's got to be about prevention. Mm-hmm. But yes, you're right, Heather, that the diluted bitumen is really a concern because we know even less about cleaning that up, and we're already very unsuccessful at cleaning up from oil spills. It's also a great reminder, right? We're in this little community of islands. We talk about like the individual shoreline property owner, and we work with individual shoreline property owners, right? And there's 5,000 of those in the county. And then there's all of us that are on the land. And then we're in an international shipping lane, right? Like Vancouver is the largest port in Canada. And so we forget sometimes that we've got these outside threats and we've got climate. And so at Friends of the San Juans, we're really focused on this local land use. That's our history. But we also recognize that there's much larger impacts impacting our community and the Salish Sea. And we have to be thinking about those as well.
And there's no place else on Earth like the San Juan Islands. Yeah. And so we've got to protect it.